20,000 years ago, during the coldest period of the Ice Age, known as the Last Glacial Maximum, the northern parts of North America, Europe, and Asia were covered with thick ice sheets. The southern regions were surrounded by cold, expansive grasslands, such as tundra ecosystems. Animal herds constantly migrated toward more fertile lands. To survive during that period, hunter-gatherer humans followed these herds and migrated to more northern regions. In northern and central Europe, winter temperatures ranged between -20 degrees Celsius and -30 degrees Celsius due to the Scandinavian ice sheet. Even during the summer, temperatures were quite low, generally ranging between -10 degrees Celsius and 0 degrees Celsius. To protect themselves from the cold, humans utilized natural shelters such as caves and stone structures. However, when hunter-gatherers reached the vast tundras, they lacked caves in these flatlands and needed to construct shelters. This forced them to build shelters using materials like mammoth bones and fur. In 1965, an ordinary day in a quiet Ukrainian village led to an extraordinary discovery. While expanding his basement, a farmer encountered an unfamiliar, large bone fragment. Upon examination, he realized it wasn't an ordinary bone, but the jawbone of a mammoth. Intrigued, he decided to dig deeper, unveiling the secrets of the past. As he continued, it seemed as though the earth was revealing secrets from thousands of years ago, uncovering more bones. What initially seemed like a simple excavation project soon turned into an archaeological mystery. The farmer noticed that the excavated bones were not randomly scattered, but carefully arranged, prompting him to notify authorities. Professional archaeologists who arrived at the site were amazed by what they found. Extensive examinations revealed a scene that pointed to a discovery delving deep into human history. A total of 149 mammoth bones, carefully arranged, were unearthed, forming the remnants of 4 small dome-shaped huts. These structures, dating back approximately 15,000 years, were shelters built by humans using mammoth bones. These huts not only reflected human survival skills during harsh glacial conditions, but also represented some of the earliest evidence of human architecture. Such shelters were particularly effective in providing protection from wind and extreme cold, symbolizing the creativity and resilience of past humans on the cold tundras. Hunter-gatherers were exceptional trackers. Their navigational skills far exceeded those of modern humans without the aid of compasses or navigation devices. Nevertheless, their migration routes were largely determined by the animal herds they hunted. As the human population grew, competition for resources increased. Scarcity of resources in warmer regions forced some groups to migrate northward with animal herds in search of less populated, expansive living spaces. During that time, woolly mammoths were at the top of the hunting list. These animals provided not only meat, with an average mammoth supplying 5 to 6 tons, which could feed 10 people for 3 to 4 years, but also fur to protect humans from the cold. Mammoths spread from Africa to Europe and Asia, and from Asia to North America. The earliest mammoth fossils, dating back about 4 million years, were discovered in Ethiopia's Afar region. In Turkey, surface surveys conducted in Denizli revealed mammoth fossils dating back 1.2 million years, belonging to early mammoth species. Remains of woolly mammoths date back approximately 400,000 years. Russia's Siberian region is one of the areas with the highest concentration of woolly mammoth fossils. Nearly intact mammoth fossils have been discovered, especially in Yakutia. As herbivores, mammoths migrated vast distances in search of expansive grasslands to sustain their diet. Additionally, hunting pressure drove them from temperate climates to less populated northern regions. In Europe, grasses and shrubs abundant in open tundra and steppes served as their primary food source. Consequently, some woolly mammoths migrated to Europe's grassy plains. This explains why mammoth fossils have been found in countries such as Poland, the Czech Republic, Germany, France, northern Spain, and even England. Today, the Dover Strait, which connects the English Channel and the North Sea, has an average depth of about 46 meters, with its deepest point reaching 72 meters. During the Ice Age, sea levels were 130 meters lower, explaining how mammoths reached England. In 1956, cave drawings were discovered in the Rouffignac Cave in Dordogne, France. These walls feature over 250 figures, most depicting large animals such as mammoths, bison, horses, and rhinoceroses. Featuring 158 depictions of mammoths, this cave holds one of Europe's largest collections of prehistoric art dedicated to these majestic creatures. Created 14,000 to 12,000 years ago using black manganese oxide and clay, these drawings reflect the importance of mammoths to the hunter-gatherers of that period. During the Ice Age, Siberia was covered with vast grasslands and tundras. Being herbivores, mammoths required extensive grazing areas, and the Siberian steppes provided ideal conditions. Siberia was one of the less populated regions, pushing mammoths to migrate away from hunting pressures to safer territories. Their thick fur and fat layers allowed them to survive cold climates. As they continued their search for food, mammoths migrated eastward to Siberia, crossed the Bering Land Bridge to Alaska, and eventually reached the Canadian tundras and northern regions of America. During the Ice Age, temperatures in polar regions were around -30 degrees Celsius. The northern parts of North America, Europe, and Asia were covered by glaciers several kilometers thick. During this period, humans lived as hunter-gatherers, following large animal herds to meet their nutritional needs. The harsh climatic conditions often forced them to migrate back to temperate regions. However, increasing populations in temperate areas led to competition for food resources. Humans relied on mammoth herds and giant bison for sustenance. Their thick fur and meat were essential for survival in harsh climates. However, hunting mammoths was a challenging task. Their thick fur and skin made them nearly impossible to hunt with early hunting tools. Constant migration to follow animal herds was a normal aspect of their lives. Smoked or dried meat was commonly used, and cold climates allowed meat to remain unspoiled for extended periods. To supplement their diet, they consumed plant roots buried under snow or used dried plant and fruit stalks they had previously stored. The average human lifespan during that era ranged between 30 and 40 years. Respiratory infections, parasites, skin infections, joint and bone diseases, food poisoning from raw or poorly stored meat, scurvy due to vitamin C deficiency, dental problems, and hunting-related injuries were common. Throughout their migration, humans used sharp spears to hunt bison. The thick fur and meat of these animals provided long-term food and clothing to protect against the cold. Having realized that raw meat caused illnesses, humans preferred cooking it over fire. Especially in harsh weather conditions, lighting a fire was difficult, so they used natural materials such as tinder fungus and animal fat to maintain and transport fire. Fire not only served cooking purposes, but also kept predators at bay. When unable to find caves in open tundra areas, humans constructed primitive tents covered with animal skins or dug 50 centimeters deep pits to spend the night. These pit shelters were covered with animal hides to protect them from the wind, and heated stones were placed on the ground. Following mammoth and giant bison herds, which could travel 20 to 30 kilometers daily, was a challenging task. The cold weather slowed down meat spoilage, allowing them to store meat for extended periods. However, freezing temperatures made water access difficult. Water sources froze, and water carried in leather containers quickly turned to ice. Mammoths, adapted to cold climates, migrated to expansive tundra areas in search of food. This migration led them eastward, eventually reaching land connections like the Bering Land Bridge. During the Ice Age, sea levels were approximately 120 to 130 meters lower, leaving the Bering Land Bridge, now about 50 to 60 meters underwater, exposed at the time. The Bering Land Bridge, covered with extensive grasslands, provided abundant food sources for mammoths and other herbivores. Primitive spears were ineffective against mammoths' thick fur. Instead, humans developed trapping techniques, digging pit traps with sharp stakes to capture animals. The meat obtained was stored frozen and dried in warmer climates for extended preservation. Mammoths continued their migration to Canada's tundra regions and the northern parts of North America. Thus, hunter-gatherer communities gradually moved southward, following large animal herds and other food sources. Migrating groups used river valleys and open grasslands in North America to expand further south. These areas provided ideal conditions for survival with water resources and vegetation. River valleys, offering safe routes, were especially significant, enabling people to move further south. Some groups traveled along the Pacific Ocean coast. The coast offered a steady food supply of fish and shellfish, making this migration route logical. Over time, these groups reached Central and South America, eventually settling in warmer regions. As they migrated, humans developed various shelters, clothing, and hunting techniques to adapt to new climates. These adaptation skills allowed them to spread across the continent. Migrating groups gradually developed cultural differences and, as they moved further south, organized into distinct communities, leading to regional variations. These migrations occurred over thousands of years, culminating in the spread of humans throughout North America and later into Central and South America, laying the foundation for diverse cultures across the continent. Using the Bering Land Bridge, humans crossed from Asia to North America and settled in new territories. Climate changes and the migration of animal herds to more fertile pastures forced humans into a constant nomadic life. Some migrated from temperate lands to colder climates in Europe, while others undertook challenging northern journeys, reaching America and eventually South America. Examinations of stone tools and animal bones found in the Bluefish Caves of Canada's Yukon region date human presence in the area to approximately 24,000 years ago. These findings reflect traces of the first humans who crossed into North America via the Bering Land Bridge. Excavations in Monteverde, Chile, show evidence of human settlement dating back approximately 18,500 years. Monteverde is considered one of the oldest settlement sites in South America, demonstrating that humans reached the Americas earlier than previously thought. During the Ice Age, particularly around 20,000 years ago, sudden climate changes were possible. There were short-term rapid warming and cooling events known as Dansgaard-Oeschger events and Heinrich events. These abrupt changes could rapidly increase and decrease temperatures within a few centuries. Such sudden climatic fluctuations had significant impacts on human communities and animal populations, forcing them to migrate to new areas. About 12,000 years ago, the Ice Age ended, and the climate began to warm rapidly. Global warming caused tundras and grasslands to shrink, replaced by forests and wetlands. This change reduced the feeding grounds and habitats of mammoths, making it harder for them to find food. Due to climate change and habitat loss, the woolly mammoth population gradually declined. In smaller populations, genetic diversity decreases, making species more vulnerable to diseases or environmental changes. Small and isolated populations also become more vulnerable reproductively, naturally contributing to population decline and eventual extinction. This marked the rapid decline and eventual extinction of large mammals like mammoths, leaving behind only remnants of their once vast populations. Mammoth graveyards containing hundreds of mammoth bones have been discovered. These mass deaths highlight the dramatic decline of large animals and significant changes in ecosystems. Especially in regions like Siberia, Alaska, North America, France, and England, these graveyards stand as some of the most astonishing remnants of the Ice Age. The Ice Age was a challenging period that profoundly shaped the geography, ecosystems, and human life on Earth. This era demonstrated the resilience and adaptability of both nature and humanity. By the end of the Ice Age, humans in various parts of the world began taking the first steps toward agriculture and settled life. This transitional process started particularly in the Fertile Crescent, where sites like Göbekli Tepe are located. With the advent of agriculture, humans transitioned to settled life and began establishing villages. Thus, hunter-gathering gradually gave way to farming and sedentary living. Göbekli Tepe may have been a communal monument for different human groups who lived during various periods, reflecting their respect for the animals they hunted and their efforts to preserve their legacy for future generations by carving it into stones. This transition is known as the Neolithic Revolution, which gained momentum approximately 10,000 years ago. The emergence of agriculture led to more permanent settlements, changes in societal structures, an increase in food production, and ultimately the birth of civilizations. These migration movements allowed human communities to adapt to different climatic conditions and develop new cultural characteristics. Migrating people laid the foundations of civilizations by adapting to diverse geographical conditions. Regions like Göbekli Tepe, Çatalhöyük, and Karahan Tepe are legacies that reflect the settled civilizations and cultural diversity of those times. With the end of the Ice Age about 12,000 years ago, global temperatures rose and glaciers began to melt. This caused sea levels to rise. Low-lying settlements along coastlines were submerged, forcing people living in coastal regions to relocate to safer, higher areas. Early agricultural activities were concentrated near river deltas and fertile coastal regions. As these areas became submerged, people moved to new regions suitable for farming. Nomadic and semi-nomadic communities moved toward higher or inland areas, following game animals and vegetation due to rising sea levels and climate changes. It is believed that the Black Sea was largely a freshwater lake during that time. However, as sea levels rose, Mediterranean waters flowed into the Black Sea basin through the Bosporus Strait. This event is believed to have caused a massive flood, transforming the Black Sea from a freshwater lake into a saltwater sea approximately 7,600 to 8,400 years ago. As a result, due to the salinity difference, oxygen in the less salty water up to 150 meters deep in the Black Sea cannot mix with the denser salty water below, between 150 and 2,000 meters. This means that beyond 150 meters, no life forms other than microorganisms can survive in the Black Sea. The absence of oxygen and the presence of hydrogen sulfide make it impossible for fish and other complex organisms to survive in the depths. Oxygen is a fundamental requirement for energy production in these organisms, so the deep waters of the Black Sea are dominated by microorganisms. For this reason, shipwrecks that sank thousands of years ago in the Black Sea have remained almost perfectly preserved to this day. The Black Sea Maritime Archaeology Project, which began in 2015 and lasted 5 years, surveyed 2,000 square kilometers of the seabed and discovered more than 60 shipwrecks. These included ships from the Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman periods. One of the most remarkable finds was a Greek trade ship dating back approximately 2,400 years, considered the world's oldest intact shipwreck. This ship remains nearly completely preserved, with its mast, rudder, and rowing benches still intact. As glaciers melted, the climate became more temperate, and previously uninhabitable highlands became suitable for settlement. This offered humans a broader geographical range for living. The Milankovitch cycles, a combination of long-term changes in Earth's orbital movements, affect the planet's climate and trigger long-term climate changes like ice ages. According to the Milankovitch cycles, the next major cooling period is likely to occur thousands of years from now, and the extent to which human activities influence these cycles will play a determining role. See you in the next video.